Will you be getting a cash handout due to the budget being revealed last night? Are fuel prices actually going to drop? Let me explain to you the 2022 budget here in Australia. Hello everyone, my name is Ethan Rooshocks, and last night was budget night, so we got the 2022 edition of the budget dropped. Now it is an election year, so there's definitely some sweeteners there trying to win over some votes. But I'm going to go through you some of the major changes for the everyday Australian, how it impacts you, and my overall thoughts on it. So the question on everyone's lips will you get a cash handout? And the answer is yes and no. So there is something for everyone, but it's not in the form of just a cash handout. And instead, it's going to be utilising the existing tax systems, which is what the government have done for a lot of the things they've rolled out over the last couple of years to make it an easier system to roll out. I quite like that. I think it's a great idea. So this year, what is happening is that you're going to get an additional $420 in the LMITO, so the low and middle income earners tax offset. So this is for earners who earn up to $126,000, I believe. And this will increase that from $1,080, so it will jump up to $1,500. So it's $420 extra for the 2021-2022 tax year. So in essence, what it means is that when you do your tax return, you should get an extra $420 either back or reduce what's paying compared to what you previously had. Now, my thoughts on this, I think it's great that it's utilizing an existing system. It means we don't have to all go and apply for this. There are those that are eligible, for instance. But the downside is it doesn't provide any upfront relief right now. So we still have at least 3 months before we lodge returns. People do get confused by this. This will be included in your overall tax return. So I'm sure I'll have clients that will say to me, oh yeah, but I get that additional 420 separately, don't you? No, that's not how it will work. And my other thing with this is, one, it only applies to people that earn up to that bracket. And the other thing is that if you're obviously not paying tax, which I'll talk about, there's a different thing for you, but it also doesn't necessarily give people that upfront payment. If you say owe tax, it's going to reduce what you owe, but that doesn't necessarily help you at the time when, you know, this is all about trying to reduce the cost of living impacts that are happening across the world, and definitely here in Australia. So yeah, I think it's a good idea. I think it's definitely something they're trying to do to win over votes. How big of an impact it actually has on individual households, I'm not really sure, but I guess most people won't complain about something that gives them extra money back. Now, one other thing with the LMITO is that they are not extending this for 2023. So this is going to hit people, and people probably won't realize that, but this was extended for 2 years to try and impact the cost of living for those couple of years, but it's not being extended again. So this is $1,080 that people won't be getting in future years. So it's about a $20 a week cut that people will probably be paying more taxes coming 1st of July. So that's definitely not going to be promoted in the budget, and this was understood. This was always a short-term measure, and it's quite a costly measure to the government, but it is something to keep in mind once we hit 1st of July. If your pay changes, that is likely what is causing it. Now, there are some other changes to tax rates that are happening over a number of years that were to put everyone in a better position overall, but this was just an additional measure that sweetened the last couple of years, but isn't going to be as good going forward. Now, I'll bring this one up here. So this is a $250 cost of living payment, and that will go to eligible pensioners, welfare recipients, veterans, and concession card holders. So this will really hit those people that aren't eligible for that increase in the LMITO because they're not working, for instance, and they will get that $250 cash payment. Look, I think that's a good idea to try and support, especially pensioners that are probably doing it quite tough, or those that are unable to work for whatever reason it may be, getting that cash payment. So they'll get that in April. And the reason why this is probably being done as a cash payment rather than through the tax system is, one, they obviously probably not lodging tax returns or aren't going to be eligible for this other offset. And they're already probably using the Centrelink system. So therefore they're already a part of the system. And a lot of what the government's trying to roll out is utilizing existing systems to make it easy to flow this money through to people's bank accounts. Now, these next two are for small businesses, so I'll go through these. So we've got external training courses where people will be able to deduct an additional 20% of expenses incurred on external training courses provided to their employees. And the training courses must be provided to employees in Australia or online and delivered by entities registered in Australia. So this is all about trying to increase spending in training and therefore giving people a 20% boost to the deduction for that. Now, I'm yet to see how this is actually going to roll out practically in the tax returns and stuff like that, but it will be important that you or your accountant keep track of what's eligible. Again, we'll get some more clear guidelines on what that actually includes, but that will then allow you to track that separately and then make sure that gets reported in the tax return. You get that 20% deduction boost. The other one we have is similar, but this time, as you'll see, it's aimed at digital adoption. So it's things like portable payment devices, cybersecurity systems, or subscription to cloud-based services. And it's going to be capped at $100,000 worth of expenditure. And again, it'll be a 20% boost to those deductions. So I think this one's really exciting. It'll be great once we have a real clear idea of what is included and what's not. But the idea of trying to push people to cloud-based software and digital security and all those types of things, I think is a really great initiative to try and increase spending. And the world is going more and more digital, and we think that we're, hit full digital adoption and then something more digital comes along. So if we can try and get Australian businesses, and in particular small business, at the forefront of this, I think that's a really good idea. I hope though that it won't be too complex to actually track, because it's going to probably put a bit of red tape burden there of trying to make sure you're tracking what's eligible and what's not, making sure that's tracked separately so that it can be reported so you can actually be eligible for that. So I think it's a good idea. I'm yet to see how it's executed as to whether it's actually well executed. Now, before I get into talking about fuel prices and how this budget affects that, I just want to quickly give a bit of a plug to my NFT project, Rooshocks. If you don't know what an NFT project is, then this is the one for you to research and learn how it can actually impact people. But the real basics is you're going to buy a Rooshocks NFT and you get 3 years of tax returns. And based on Wavell prices at the start, this was around $300. So you're getting a tax return done by an Australian accountant for $100 each, and you get to own the NFT. We've already done some great giveaways to holders. I'd love for you to either check out the Discord or check out the link to the project in the description of the video. And let's get back into the video and talk about fuel prices. Now, a big thing that everyone has also been talking about leading up to this budget is fuel prices. We've obviously had skyrocketing fuel prices over the last month or so here in Australia and across the world. So it was talk about, well, what can the government do to reduce this? So they announced that from midnight on budget night, they will be halving the fuel excise tax that they charge from, I think it's 44 cents down to about 22 cents. And this will be a temporary measure for 6 months. So for 6 months, we hopefully should see, which there will be watchdogs that keep an eye on this to make sure it gets passed on, but approximately a 20 cent per litre drop in fuel prices. Now, they did say this may take a couple weeks to flow through to the prices you actually pay at the pump, but obviously always a good thing to try and drop the fuel prices back down. But when you look at fuel prices, I'd imagine they're probably gone up from anywhere between 50 to 80 cents per litre over the last month. So while 20 cents is great, it's still going to put people in a worse position than they were, say, a month ago. But obviously 20 cents per litre is still going to add up, but it is only temporary for 6 months. So it'll be interesting what happens then if the pressure on fuel prices is still high, as to what this government, or whether we have a change in government, do to whether they extend this or whether they cut that and that's it. That will definitely be an interesting thing. But look, a reduction in fuel prices is always a positive. Another one that I thought was a good idea, but maybe isn't as much tax related, but the paid parental leave scheme is being slightly adjusted. So instead of being at 18 weeks for the mother and 2 weeks for the dad and partner pay, sounds like that'll be combined into a 20-week period that can be split however suits that family, or for a single parent, they'll get the whole 20 weeks. I think this is great because there was an issue where the dad and partner pay is based on minimum wage, and quite often they said a lot of dads weren't taking it because they weren't able to take other leave from their work alongside that, and it was going to put them in a worse financial position, so they just weren't utilising it. So I think giving families that flexibility to use it as fits, I think is a great idea. And anything that gives flexibility but doesn't necessarily blow a budget out is always going to be a good measure, because it doesn't affect the government from a spending point of view, but it helps the individuals to be able to fit something to how best suits them. Now, there are a range of other measures in the budget, especially tax. There's lots of other, obviously, spending things, but I really wanted to touch on the major ones that are going to affect everyday Australians. If there is other areas you want me to delve into deeper, I'm happy to talk about them, but a lot of the measures don't really impact everyday people. These are going to be the major ones when it comes to tax changes, changes for small business, any kind of cash handout payments, as we've discussed, parental leave, fuel prices. They were the main ones for this year. There's a range of others. If you want to go check them out, I'm sure you'll be able to find it online. But like I said, I'm happy to discuss any further. Obviously, the tax side is my special. Being an accountant, we're leading up to tax time. So obviously, if you've got any other tax-related content you want me to cover, drop a comment down below. And if this is your first time here, make sure you've hit that subscribe button. Appreciate you being here, and I'll talk to you again on the next video.